Welcome back to my channel. Always so happy to find you here. I do try to upload on Monday, Thursday, and certainly an upload on Friday to kick off our weekend called Philosophically Friday, where I read a quote, a positive quote, to help you kick off a good weekend, have a good weekend. Too much caffeine. So here we go. I've been wanting to do this one. It occurred in September 21st, actually. And I'll probably read it because it's just, you have to read the facts, I'll tell you that. The story of a small town, I think it's called Whitesburg, Kentucky, where a sheriff shot and killed a judge. And I believe they're the only one in the town of about 1,700 people. But why did he do it? It's because his deputy, the sheriff's deputy, had been raping inmates, and particularly two inmates in the judge's chambers. Now, seriously, you can't make that up. You cannot make that up. And that's very, well, for anyone, that's very problematic for me because the courts and the law is where we feel most protected. And if we're being taken advantage of by that, oh my God, where do you go? And particularly if they're the only ones in such a small town, you're really being held, you're being held captive. You're being held sexually captive. My understanding from this story is that these women were having sex with this deputy to keep them from out of jail. So he would take them there and then allow them to return back to home quarters. But let me read it to you and then get my comment. I mean, it's just alarming. So let's see. It's actually it is Whitesburg, Kentucky. The sheriff of the town was charged with murder in the shooting of a rural Kentucky judge in his courthouse chambers. He was accused in a federal lawsuit of failing to investigate allegations that one of his deputies repeatedly sexually abused a woman in the same judge's chambers. Now, as the story reads, the preliminary investigation shows that Judge Kevin Mullins, on multiple times on Thursday, the day of the shooting, was following an argument inside the courthouse with Kentucky State Police. Mullins had been in judgeships for about 15 years. He died at the scene, and the sheriff Steins surrendered without incident. Just what the two men were arguing about was not immediately made clear, but it was known that Sheriff Steins was deposed on the previous Monday in a lawsuit that was actually filed by not just the one, as it said earlier, but two women. But namely one who alleged that a deputy forced her to have sex inside Mullins' chambers for 6 months. You can imagine 6 months in exchange for staying out of jail. So by default, she's paying for her freedom with sex. The lawsuit accuses the judge of deliberate indifference in failing to adequately train and supervise the deputy. Well, let's stop there for a second. Let's just talk about just that part, the phrasing of his failure to adequately train and supervise the deputy. He knows that's breaking the law. What would you train him on? Not to rape somebody? That you already know. That coercion, that manipulation, that power and authority. To what are you referring he needed to train him on? You see, to not take by force a sexual encounter with someone unwillingly. We don't train on those things in any work environment. The assumption is that you know not to do that. You see. So this is tomfoolery from my point of view. He did not fail to train him by something by which you would. This is what you felt in that role, I would say. This is what you would fail as a sheriff on training. You would fail on how to properly pull over, for example, for a speeding ticket of someone. You would fail on how to properly document a report. You would fail on how to properly train on how to handle and when to handle a weapon. You would train on when to call for backup, how soon, and what's necessary. You would train on how to remain calm in your composure under the most stressful time. You don't train somebody not to rape somebody. But see, this is nonsense. This is what we do with the language in this country. We use language in such a way that it makes a person, or the assumption is that a person just doesn't know any better. Well, this is crazy. This is crazy. So continuing with, I had to stop there. Continuing with this article, it says the now former deputy sheriff who was doing this, Ben Fields, pleaded guilty to raping the female prisoner while she was on home incarceration. So she was on a home pass, home incarceration. So it's like, you know how they wear the ankle monitors, that kind of thing. He was taking her from that environment into the judges. I mean, what respect do you have for the judges' chambers to rape and have sex with someone in those chambers? But nonetheless, it goes on to say that Fields was sentenced, so deputy was doing this, Ben Fields, was sentenced to 6 months in jail and then 6.5 years on probation for rape, sodomy, perjury, and tampering with a person's monitoring device. So he had to tamper with her device in order to get her from away from range of her home. So there were actually 3 charges later related to a second woman. They were dismissed because that second woman had already died. Well, let me say this. 6 months is his sentence in jail. And he not only broke the law, he was the enforcer of the law. So by default, I would think it would be a harsher sentence because the prisoner is afraid of the protection by which was assigned to her in the first place. You see, the guarding of her privacy was taken advantage of by the person who was to guard her, who was to protect her. And I'm sure in this town they have more than just one, but perhaps she was too afraid to report it, but she wanted her own freedom. So there she was being taken into a whole different environment in judges' chambers, having taken advantage of this way and too afraid to make a complaint because the sheriff hadn't done anything before. So in all of this, to get rid of that issue, the sheriff kills the judge. Now this is just stuff you can't make up. I mean, I can't even put my head around it. You just can't make, like, who thinks to do these things? It's insanity. But there you have it. And this occurred just like last month. And so there was a comment that was made. Oh, let me read it too. Let me get that right. There was a comment that was made in the reporting of this by NPR News as they were talking about how horrible this case was and that it would become, fodder and also learning and training in colleges and in law enforcement on what not to do. And so it was a lot of topic and talks about this case last month on many podcasts. But one of the things that really stood out with me is one of the reporters said that killing the judge was one thing, raping the defendants were another, but this is one thing that the town will forever be measured by, not only in decades, but in years. Not in years, but in decades, I'm sorry. So the town will forever be measured by decades, not just years, because of this occurrence. And so I thought about that and I said, there's I think it's either Buddhist saying or a Zen saying that says, I paid the debt of 1,000 years, and so nothing can catch me now, kind of thing, something like that. It's a saying that really you're so set free of all your deeds that even your future lives will be free because of the cost you paid for it. It's like that. I paid the debt of 1,000 years and nothing can catch me now. And this is the thing that will haunt this town, because there are occurrences that can be so deep and devastating in a city that the city can never free itself of. I think of the Watts riots in Los Angeles. I think of the Rodney King murder trial. Beating trial, murder trial. My bad. The O.J. Simpson murder trial was one. But it will just stain the whole city because of the shock that it delivered and the rage that came from it, from the citizenry and all of that. And now here's this little town that was just never even on the map, now on the statewide map, not only on the statewide map, but on the nationwide map, in discussion of how the sheriff killed the judge because the deputy was raping female inmates in his courthouse. It's just too Shakespearean to make sense of it all. But here we are discussing it. We're discussing what not to do. And how does anyone even have the forward thought to take such an action? How did he even approach it for the first time? What made him so comfortable that he can propose this to an inmate, that I'm going to have sex with you, and to have sex with you, I'm going to help you from going back to prison. And if you don't have sex with me, all of the threats, this is complete power and authority over a person. It's in the head, here we are, the basement of the person to do it. And you think 6 months prison time is enough for this officer Ben Fields? You think 6 months is enough time? The judge lost his life. 2 women were raped. 1 died. The sheriff is in jail now because the judge, all of this because of something you did, and you got 6 months. Something's just not adding up. The math ain't mathing. The math ain't mathing. All the things fall because of this one person's bad deed. All the things. And then here he had 6 months in jail and then 6 years probation, and he'll be out of that in no time. Anyway, these are the laws of our land, and this is how things turn out, and I just will never understand it, and neither will you, but it's just horrible, because I think about the inmate that's still alive. She's the only one that's free, meaning she's the only one, well, she was never free because she was also the prisoner, but she'll be stuck with being raped. That'll stay with her forever. And she's also now stuck with the thought of the judge losing his life, the sheriff going to prison, this person, if she had been having intimacy for so long, there's a term that's used for it, I can't call it right now, to where you almost fall in love with your you've been taken advantage of for so long that it becomes habited for you. Expect that to occur, that you almost fall in love with the person who is mistreating you in the first place. That all of that, it just messes up the person. And very rarely do they ever get realigned with their righteousness, I'll say. Realign with the best constitution of themselves. Realign with a great healing and a great freedom by which nothing is occurring to them. Realign in such a way where peace foresees them and peace proceeds them, and peace surrounds them. Very rarely does a person ever achieve that after such crisis, I'll say. So, here we have that, and unfortunately, it may not be this exactly, but this type of thing occurs not just here, unfortunately. And so, again, once again, as I always say, speak up, use your voice. You must find a way, because to be overpowered in a way that's so private to a person, private to a woman, is very scarring. And I'm sure that she'll have the rest of her life in some degree or another in a healing formation. So we'll send her love, and we'll send her prayers, and we'll send her a healing energy. I hope if you've gotten this far, you click like and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Make our choices wise and our lives rich. Have a good night.